Points for anyone who sits in the front. I promise I don't bite. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're going to get started here in just a little while. As we are settling down, we have a great opportunity. The Lord be with you. That one always works. As we're settling down, we have a great opportunity that has come our way over the past 2 weeks, and this is a couple of people in their forums. I know Josh Bickler and Stephen Bush have mentioned Just Mercy, the book by Brian Stevenson, and I've been hearing some people have picked up this book and started reading it. Well, he is coming to Memphis, and we have been given the opportunity to sponsor 10 tickets to go hear him on March 2nd, I believe it is, Friday, March 2nd. So if you are interested in going to hear Brian Stevenson speak about his work with Just Mercy, then see Sherry Murphy. She'll raise her hand right there, and we will make sure that you get one of our sponsor tickets for that wonderful event. But this is something that just kind of has bubbled up through our adult forum, so we wanted to jump on it and spread the good news. So if you are interested, see Sherry Murphy, and we'll get you a ticket for that. The Lord be with you again. Gracious God, we thank you for the gift of music. We thank you for the gift of reconciliation. And most of all, we thank you for the gift of your mercy and grace and love for all of us, your children, who you've made in your image. Amen. So before I discerned the call to ministry, I was studying music. And in college, my track was more specifically 20th century American music, and even more specifically, the Delta Blues. So that is what I spent my undergraduate degree looking into, is what is this amazing heritage that we have in our region of the Delta, and what is this musical, what are these musical roots that we share in our area, and what does it say about who we are and who we hope to be? So I studied, my thesis was on whether you could take the Delta Blues and transport them to another culture, would they still be the blues? And what I came up with at the end of this, I went actually over to Italy, where they have what's called the Sweet Soul Music Festival. And this is a bunch of Memphis and Delta Blues musicians who are worshiped in this small town in Italy, in Rufus Thomas Park on Otis Redding Avenue in the middle of a hill town in Italy. So it's pretty amazing. You say, I'm from Memphis, and they don't say, oh, Elvis. They say, oh, B.B. King, oh, Rufus Thomas, Wilson Pickett. They just go down the line. And what I learned is that, yes, there is a quality to blues music that is universal. there is also something that is unique to our space and our time and our context that really was the birth of this music. So we're going to talk about blues music today as it relates to MLK 50 and our work with race relations. And we're also going to dive into a little blues composing ourselves. So some of you might remember this. When I first came to Holy Communion 3.5 years ago, I taught a group of people how to write the 12-bar blues. And we're going to do that again today. So don't leave. Don't escape. I'm watching. Without slavery, without oppression, without our context of being in the fertile lands of the Mississippi, the mighty Mississippi, there would be no blues. And this is a hard thing to come to grips with. Where there is cotton, there is violence. And this was something that Walter Brueggemann said when he first came to Memphis. Where there is cotton, there is violence. And when I first heard that, I thought, what do you mean? I love cotton. I love our land. I love how fertile it is. I love the southern heritage that we have. But then I started digging a little bit deeper. And the hard truth was he was right. There is a reason that all along this fertile valley of the Mississippi Delta and all of the land that we have the race relations and the race tension that we have in our area that gave birth to the blues. Because the blues are the laments of the African Americans who were brought to our area of the country to work the land. Now, I would say cotton in itself is not the enemy. Cotton is good. Cotton is wonderful. It is a blessing that we have been given in our area. But when humans start to see how much productivity they can squeeze out of every inch of the land, how much productivity they can squeeze out of every individual person, and how much they can use that to further their own wealth, their own worldly treasure, that's when we get into trouble. And that is our heritage. That is what we are taking a look at during our March to MLK 50. That is what we are examining. And that is what we're starting to look at, all the rich texture and the rich layers of all of this. And some of them are pretty and some of them are ugly. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Bonus points for anyone who knows who this is. Yeah, Robert Johnson, sold to the devil at the crossroads, or so they say. But you know, one of the icons of Delta blues, and in one of the books, Spirituals and the Blues, which is on one of the tables, I've kind of spread out some of the books that I used on all the tables. So take a look all around, right over there, Spirituals and the Blues. James Cone says, singing is a medium through which we talk to each other and make known our perspectives on life to the world. It is our way of recording and reflecting on our experiences, the good and the bad, the personal and the political, the sacred and the secular. So I love it when people say, oh, you shouldn't make music so political, because you know what? Politics in music dates back to the beginning of music. It is how we talk about where we are, where we hope to be, our frustrations, our hopes, our dreams, all of that. Music is a way that we process what we're going through. It's also a way that we communicate and name what we're going through. Now, unlike the protest songs of the 60s, one major difference is that the blues in this area were not saying, this is what we need to happen, action right now. They were not actually calling for a change in most blues songs. There were some that were, just like there are some happy blues songs too. I'm speaking in broad generalizations here. But the majority were just stating the way things were. the way things are. And that power was saying, you know what, I'm going through this horrible thing. And I bet I'm not the only one. I'm going to name it, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to get it off my chest. And then I'm going to take solidarity in the fact that there are people nodding their heads all over that room saying, we're in it with you, brother. We're there with you. So the blues were a way for the African Americans of this area to come together and to say, life is so hard. Life is suffering. Life is pain. This is hard. And for them to say, we're in it together. And to name it. One of the greatest powers that we have is when we name our pain, it gives us the power over it. So they are naming it, they are saying it, they are coming together, and they are finding that solidarity as a group. Now, some are calling for change, some are rejoicing in small things, but for the most part, that's what they're doing. And I would say that they're not the only ones. If you look at a lot of country music, what is it saying? My truck died, my wife died, my dog died. Life is horrible. Okay, so we're going to sing about it. This is a universal truth, right? You've got the British pub songs. A lot of those songs are saying, royalty's horrible. Life is terrible. I have nothing to eat. I want to drink instead. So you've got this kind of universal that's happening everywhere, across time, across the globe, but you also have the specific context of the Delta. So now, all along the Mississippi and the fertile land that lives all around it, you have this Delta Blues Trail. And the reason you have that, from Memphis all the way down to Marigold, Mississippi, and spreading out through there, is because that was rich farmland. And where there were farms, where there were plantations, there were slaves. And even after there were slaves, there were sharecroppers. And there were people who might not have been enslaved officially. They were enslaved by debt, enslaved by poverty, enslaved by lack of education and lack of resources. So if you start up in Memphis and go all the way down the river, you'll have all of those places where there were farms and there was need to have labor on those farms. And unfortunately, in our system, what happened was that we oppressed people to make that land more profitable. And so it's from that reality that that we have this birth of this new music. Now, without Africans coming over to the States, we would have no blues. We would have no R&B. We would have no soul. We would have no Elvis Presley. We might have him. He might have been a lot more boring. We would have had none of the wonderful, rich musical texture that we have today would have been possible if we did not have the African American culture here in America. It was their beat, their drumming, their syncopation, their use of music and all things that had to do with life. It was all of that that gave rise to what we think of as our music today. All classical aside, but even that was influenced by the syncopated beats and the rich textures of the African music. So it was in this meeting of cultures that you have new forms of music that had never been heard before. One of the other books that's on your table is Blues Fell This Morning, and that's a book by Paul Oliver. And he talks about the role of the blues in people's lives and what it meant for them, but then also what it meant for our culture and our society as a whole and for the world. And in it, he says, the blues acted as an emotional safety valve, canalizing feelings of anger and resentment. The music was enriched whilst the disappointment and frustration that had been experienced were diverted from more violent forms of expression. You know, when we get frustrated, when we get angry, when we get overwhelmed, you've got a choice to make. Do I act violently or do I act peacefully? And blues music gave a channel for those feelings to come out, because another choice is just to suppress them, right? Just to keep them down deep inside, and then you don't actually get to choose how they come out. They just come out in unexpected ways. So the blues and that music was one way of getting all that anger and frustration out in a way that was nonviolent. He also says that song is a vehicle for speaking with God. Song plays a major part in tribal custom. It provides a vehicle for courting and disowning alike. A vehicle for courting and disowning. So this is mine, and this is what I don't want to be mine. For evoking some emotions and suppressing others. For declaring passions and for easing pains. Again, that brings us back to naming our pain gives us power over it. Seeing that we are not alone in our pain and that we are walking this journey together gives us that power. Another icon of the Delta blues is W.C. Handy. And this gives you an idea of one of his early blues songs in its form. And in this one, he is lamenting the fact that the boll weevil hit the South in devastating and tragic ways and wiped out cotton crops all over the place. And so in singing about it, he says, boll weevil, where you been so long? Boll weevil, where you been so long? You stole my cotton, and now you want my corn. So there's this, he states the thing, and then he embellishes on it. He says, not just boll weevil, you are the pest, but this is what you're doing to me. And this is an example of a blues song that's written because of suffering at the hand of one of God's creatures, one of God's smallest creatures, but yet very powerful. I like to hold on to that. Small things can be very mighty. But he also, in other songs and in other blues, you're going to see it's not always the boll weevil we can blame, right? Oftentimes it was suffering at the hands of other people, of the plantation owners, of the people who were supposed to be brothers and sisters in Christ, but were not. So if we'd like to say, okay, the good old days, we're reminded that this story is as old as Pharaoh himself, and even before that. Slavery, oppression, getting the most you can out of the land at whatever cost it takes on people, on the land, on the earth, on all around us is nothing new. And one of the other books is Brueggemann's Sabbath as Resistance. This is a book that we studied 3 years ago before Brueggemann came here to Holy Communion and spoke. And his thesis is that as long as we live in Pharaoh's land, our worth is determined by what we produce. Our liberation from Pharaoh's slavery is our liberation to own that our worth is not determined by what we produce. It is not a commodity. We are made in God's image. We are God's beloved children, and our worth is guaranteed by that alone. Not by how much crop we can get out of the land, not by how many bricks we can make, not by what we can cause somebody else to profit from, but because we in ourselves are worthy of God's love, and we are worthy of respect and dignity, one of the baptismal vows that we take every time we renew those vows. So in this book, he says, none of this is new. All of it is as old as Pharaoh's Egypt. The narrative is a rendering of recurring social relationships legitimated by anti-neighborly gods. In this case, gods would be consumerism, materialism, who give warrant in the interest of commodity to redefine neighbors as slaves, threats, rivals, and competitors. Their exploitive systems go unchallenged and unnoticed. The abuse becomes normal. Anxiety is a given, and violence is unexamined as the cost of doing business. This was true in Pharaoh's Egypt. This was true in the Delta. The cost of doing business at the expense of some and the profit of others. So when we think about ourselves as being part of a money-making machine and not as people worthy of dignity and respect, then this comes out. And he goes further to say that Sabbath itself, taking that seventh day to rest, is resistance against that notion. I'm going to take one day out of this week and I'm going to be unproductive. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to sit back and allow myself to say, it is good. And I'm going to rest. Because being is enough. The other 6 days, you can get back to work. But to take that time to say, I do not have to produce in order to be a part of this society, in order to be loved, in order to be worthy, is resistance against Pharaoh's Egypt. It is resistance against this whole idea that we are enslaved to the picture of how much profit we can make. And that's something that we can hear loud and clearly today, just as much as we could during the Civil Rights Movement, just as much as we could during the time of slavery, just as much as we could through all of history. This is a narrative that goes all the way through time and generations, from one country to another. That constant reminder that we as people of faith have a different narrative. We have a different way to live. And that living does not make our worth dependent on what we produce. So, what was true for African Americans in the Delta and caused the birth of the blues was also true for the Israelites as they were in the wilderness, as they were spread out in the diaspora, as they were torn away from their home, as many were enslaved or at least oppressed. They too said, this is suffering, this is pain, and I need a channel. I need to be able to get this out and to communicate it. So they wrote the Psalms. Now, I love our lectionary. I really do. I love that we get a good dose of all the books of the Bible, most of them, throughout the course of 3 years. But what is missing are the Psalms of Lament, except for on Good Friday. We don't like to talk about the Psalms of Lament, and I love that Phil helped lead us through them and help us immerse ourselves in them a little bit more this past fall. But we don't get them in the lectionary the way that we should. Psalms, like the blues, give us the ability to name our pain, to name our suffering, to get angry at God. That's okay. And then to look for the hope. So, we're going to look at some of the ways that the blues and the Psalms are very similar. Very similar. So oftentimes in the Psalms you have this form where they repeat the suffering twice. Sometimes it's in the same words, sometimes it's in very similar words, but they repeat the problem twice, kind of like if you didn't get it the first time, I'm going to say it again because I need you to hear this. And then they'll use like two lines that kind of contrast with each other Because sometimes when we give the counterpoint, you pay attention to it a little bit more. So, well, there's this, and then there's that, and that makes you kind of think about it in a new way. Or they might connect two of these by simile or metaphor, kind of using the same imagery. A lot of times in the Psalms, you'll see imagery of water, of land, promised land, of Zion, of all sorts of different things where they kind of connect that all together with similar, it is like this. As my soul longs for the water brook. It's kind of, you talk about a reality, but in more of a picturesque way using those images. And then you tend to take those, you've named it twice, and then the third time you say, and furthermore this. So I got up and I was really tired. I was so tired. I couldn't even see to put my shoes on. It's kind of, I'm going to name it twice, and then I'm going to say, and it was so bad that what's more, this horrible, and then it gets into some hyperbole, some exaggeration, right? I got a bad grade on my test. It was so bad I'm going to flunk out of school and the whole world is going to end. Not that any teenager feels that way. So here's an example of it. Earlier we heard with W.C. Handy, Boll Weevil, where you been so long? Boll Weevil, where you been so long? You took my cotton and now you want my corn. Okay, so that's the what's more be. So in the Psalms, we have Psalm 3. Deliver me, O God, for you strike my enemies on the cheek. Deliver me, O God, for you strike my enemies on the cheek. Break the teeth of the wicked, O Lord. Rise up and deliver me. We don't hear a lot of break the teeth of our enemies in church, do we? It kind of goes against the whole love thy neighbor piece. And eventually we do want to get to love thy neighbor. But the only way we can get to love thy neighbor is to say, I'm angry. I am angry about this. And yes, I can pray to God to turn my heart and to help me to love my neighbor. But first, I've got to admit that something's wrong and I'm upset about it. And without that step, if we skip that step, sometimes it's hard to get to the forgiveness and the love thy neighbor piece. So the Psalms let us spend a little bit of time pouting and kicking our feet and saying, this is not right. I don't like it. And then we can get on to the reconciliation piece of it. So if you were to merge the Psalms with the 12-bar blues, some of you have seen this before. But I'd like to say that you can set any psalm of lament into our 12-bar blues. You've got two lines. The first one is A, the second one is restating A, and the third one is B. So you take Psalm 42 right here. Oh, my soul, why are you so heavy? Oh, my soul, why are you so heavy? Why are you so disquieted within me? And if you were going to hear that to what we think of as a 12-bar blues, it's, oh, my soul, why are you so heavy? Can you picture it going behind you? Oh, my soul, why are you so heavy? Why are you so disquieted within me? If you went back to the W.C. Handy, same thing. Boll weevil, where you've been so long. Boll weevil, where you've been so long. You took my cotton and now you want my corn. Generations apart, same thing. Our blues are our Psalms of Lamentation. And why the blues might not come right out and name God, I would say a lot of those troubles are being lifted up to a power beyond this earth. So, you're going to get to learn how to do this. In just a little while, I'm going to hand out Psalms. If you are not at a table, you can group up into chairs, or there are lots of seats up here at the front if you want to come join just for this part of it. And I'm going to hand you a psalm, and I want you to kind of look through that psalm of lament and highlight the words that stand out to you. I hope I have it in the stack, but there's one that talks about the slime of the slug that slithers along the ground. I mean, there's some great images in these psalms. And I want you to pick out one complaint as your A. That one complaint. It could be the boll weevil. It can be, the being separated from our land. It can be, God, why are you so far away? Why have you forsaken me? And then I want you to pick out a B line that is kind of that thought but expanded. So, yes, God, you feel so far away from me. You feel so far away from me that I don't know what to do. So I want you to pick out an A line and a B line. Once you get your A line, it's easy. You just write it twice. And then once you get your B line, you can write that as the third one. And then practice singing it together. Now, you don't have to use the words exactly. You can paraphrase a little bit, and that's fine. Musicians do that all the time. Well, that word doesn't have the right number of syllables, so I'm going to add another beat to it, or I'm going to take out a word here, add one there, so you don't have to go straightly by the script. But you can go with a general idea of what it's saying and paraphrasing it. So, for instance, in Psalm 6, it's, "O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, or discipline me in your wrath." So with just that one verse, you could use that first one as your A line. "Oh, Lord, do not rebuke me," or, "Oh, Lord, don't rebuke me in your anger." You see, you can do it several ways. And then, "Oh, Lord, don't discipline me in your wrath," or you can do it, lots of different ways, but you can kind of take that first line, do it twice, and then take the third line and put it at the end. And I'm going to be traveling around and offering assistance while we do this. But if I could first ask somebody to help give each table a psalm. And then if you don't like your psalm, I'm going to have a few extra up here. You can come exchange it if you'd like to. There you go. And then if you could hand out, we've got little templates here for you to write on as well. There you go. One a table. One a table. Okay, everybody. I have checked in with just about every table, and I think we are ready to take this show on the road. So, perfectionism is not our goal, okay? One thing I told to this table over here is that most blues musicians can't sing either. That's why they're in dark and dingy, kind of hole-in-the-wall places, and after 3 beers, it all sounds better. So here we go. We're going to start with this table over here, and they got a heads up that they were going to be first. We're going to sing it together. First, I want you to say what psalm you have. Oops. So we've got Psalm 22, and Psalm 22, I'm going to see where you got this from. "Deliver my soul from the sword, save me from the mouth of the lion." Okay, so y'all ready? Okay, here we go. Deliver my soul from the sword. deliver my soul from the sword. Save me from the mouth of the lion. Awesome! Awesome! Very good. Okay, this table. You knew I was coming. You knew I was coming. You got Psalm 22. Okay, there we go. You ready? Sure. Oh my God, you have forsaken me. Oh my God, you have forsaken me. Why am I left in the dust of death? Good job. Oh. There we go. Okay, from this table we got Psalm 6. Psalm 6. You ready? Okay, I'm going to take this and hold it out for you all. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, we're going to stand right here. You had it down, didn't you? You had a little jump start, didn't you?
I am weary with my moaning, Lord. I am weary with my moaning, Lord. Every night I flood my bed with tears.
Look at that. Okay, here we go. Okay, Psalm 141. Psalm 141.
Put the mic up.
No.
Here we go. Oh, Lord, let the wicked oil hit me. Oh, Lord, don't let the wicked oil hit me. Let that oil fall onto the wicked, not me. I like that. Let that oil fall onto the wicked. Okay, we got Psalm 73.
I'm stupid and ignorant, like a stupid beast toward you. I'm stupid and ignorant, stupid beast toward you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is my strength.
Awesome. Very good. Here we go. Okay, what psalm? Psalm 22. Okay, you ready with the beat? Praise the Lord, you that fear him. Praise the Lord, you that fear him. But when they cry to him, he hears them. Awesome. You got it. Okay, I'll come back. Are y'all good? Okay, here we go. Okay.
We were going to start and they hum.
Yes, Psalm 102.
I'm like a bird on a lonely
Housetop.
I'm a lonely
Bird on the housetop. For you lift me up and you're aside. Like a lonely bird on the housetop and you throw me aside. I like it. Okay, our makeshift table back here. Y'all ready? Okay. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept. Lord, how could we sing in a foreign land? Awesome. Very good. Okay, we got Psalm 102. You got it? Can I get an amen? You bet. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Save me, Lord, my days pass away like smoke. Save me, O Lord, my days pass away like smoke. Hear my prayer, I'm too wasted to eat my bread. That's good. Okay, we got Psalm 140. 140. Deliver me, Lord, from the hands of evildoers. Deliver me, Lord, from the hands of the evildoers. Protect me from the trap they've hidden for me. Ooh, we got the drumming over here. I like that. Very good. You knew I was coming. Okay, here we go. Psalm 58. Psalm 58. Oh, God, break teeth in their mouths. Oh, God, break the teeth in their mouths. Let them be like the snail that dissolves into slime. You got the good one. It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Okay, right over here. Okay, Psalm 31. Be gracious, Lord, for I am in distress. Be gracious, Lord, for I am in distress. My eye wastes from grief. My soul and body too. There you go. My eye wastes from grief. My soul and body too. Waters. Very good. Let's try that last line one more time. My eye waters from grief. My soul and body too. Yes, you got it. Okay, here we go.
You might want to read his.
Psalm 6. There we go. Lord, my bones are shaken in terror. Lord, my bones be shaken in terror. Heal me, Lord, from my shaken arthritis. Send it to show. I like the little added bit at the end. Did I miss any tables? No? Give yourselves a big pat on the back. You did it. So next time you go to a blues club, of which Memphis has plenty, or if you decide to do the blues trail down the Delta, which I would gladly accompany any of you on, I want you to think about how the fact that this blues music is not their music or our music. It's a universal music of all people in all times, the music of oppression, the music of pain and suffering, and it is the music that we can all use to speak to God. Amen.